Help me. Oh God, it's tearing apart. Sarah Chen's screams pierced through the summer air, cutting through the mechanical roar of the apex predator roller coaster like a knife through steel. 200 feet above Thunder Mountain Amusement Park, her body dangled from a catastrophically failing restraint system held only by fraying polyester straps and her own desperate grip on a metal bar that was never designed to support full body weight. Below, hundreds of park visitors stood frozen in collective horror. Parents covered their children's eyes. Teenagers held up phones, live streaming a nightmare in real time. Emergency sirens wailed in the distance, but everyone knew they were at least 4 minutes away. Sarah had seconds. "Somebody do something," her boyfriend Jake screamed from the seat beside her, trapped in his own restraints, unable to reach her as the coaster hung suspended at the peak of its highest loop. The ride's emergency systems had engaged, freezing the train in place. But for Sarah, the safety mechanism had become a death trap. The polyester webbing of her shoulder harness made a sound like tearing paper, except this paper was the only thing between a 24-year-old woman and a 200-foot drop onto concrete. With each rip, Sarah's body shifted another inch toward oblivion. July 15th, Thunder Mountain Amusement Park. What started as a birthday celebration would end as the worst amusement ride disaster in American history. The apex predator, 320 feet of twisted steel, marketed as the most extreme ride on Earth, was about to live up to its name in ways no one ever imagined. But this wasn't a freak accident. This was the inevitable result of ignored warnings, deferred maintenance, and a corporate culture that valued profit over lives. For months, the beast had been showing signs of metal fatigue. Workers had reported concerns. Inspectors had documented violations. And in row 12, Sate 4, Sarah's seat, a critical failure, had been building for 847 operational hours. In the next 3 minutes, a young woman's desperate fight for survival would expose an entire industry's dark secrets. What you're about to witness isn't just a tragedy, it's a crime. Thunder Mountain Amusement Park opened in 1987 as a modest family destination in northern Ohio. For 20 years, it survived on gentle carousels, a modest wooden coaster, and a reputation for affordable family fun. But by 2015, the park was dying. Attendance had dropped 60%. Newer parks with bigger thrills were drawing away customers. Thunder Mountain needed something revolutionary, or it would close forever. Enter Marcus Webb, the park's new CEO. Webb wasn't an amusement park veteran. He came from the casino industry, where he'd learned that people would risk everything for the right adrenaline rush. His vision for Thunder Mountain was simple: build the most extreme rides in America and market danger as entertainment. "Fear sells," Webb told investors in 2016. "We're not selling rides, we're selling near-death experiences that people can walk away from." The apex predator was Webb's masterpiece. Designed by Steelhawk International, a company known for pushing engineering boundaries, the coaster would break 5 world records: tallest drop, fastest acceleration, most inversions, longest airtime, and most controversially, the most extreme G-forces ever subjected to civilian riders. Construction began in 2018 with a budget of $47 million. By completion in 2020, costs had ballooned to $73 million. The park had borrowed heavily, betting everything on apex predator's success. There was no room for the ride to fail financially or mechanically. The coaster was a marvel of engineering aggression. The first drop plunged riders 310 feet at an 87-degree angle beyond vertical. Speeds reached 95 miles mph in 2.8 seconds. 14 inversions twisted riders through configurations that pushed human physiology to its limits. The marketing campaign branded it the ride that bites back. Dr. Jennifer Rodriguez, a biomechanical engineer who reviewed the initial designs, raised immediate concerns. The G-forces on this ride exceed fighter pilot training parameters, she warned in a 2019 report. Sustained forces of 5.2 Gs, with peaks reaching 6.1 Gs, pose significant risks of consciousness loss, particularly in smaller riders. Her warnings were dismissed. Webb's response was to add a waiver system requiring riders to acknowledge extreme physical forces and absolve the park of liability. The tagline became, "Not everyone survives the apex predator, metaphorically speaking." But the real danger wasn't the G-forces, it was the restraint system. The apex predator used a new FlexLock Ultra harness designed by a subcontractor trying to cut costs. Unlike traditional rigid over-shoulder restraints, FlexLock used a combination of polyester webbing and aluminum locking mechanisms, marketed as lighter, more comfortable, and just as safe. Initial testing showed concerning wear patterns after just 500 cycles. The polyester straps showed micro tears. The aluminum locks developed stress fractures. Steelhawk engineers recommended switching to steel components and military-grade webbing. The recommendation would have cost an additional $2.3 million. Webb rejected it. "The current system exceeds minimum safety standards," he wrote in an email later obtained by investigators. "Additional expenditure is unnecessary." The ride opened May 1, 2021, to massive crowds. Opening day saw 0 visitors, with 4-hour waits for apex predator. Social media exploded with videos of riders screaming, crying, some even passing out mid-ride. It was exactly the viral marketing Webb wanted. Sarah Chen first rode apex predator on her 23rd birthday, exactly 1 year before the disaster. She loved it so much, she rode it 6 times that day. "It's like flying and falling and dying and being reborn all in 3 minutes," she posted on Instagram. Already planning to come back next year. She became one of the ride's many devoted fans, part of a community calling themselves Apex Survivors, who competed to ride as many times as possible. The park encouraged this devotion, offering season passes and exclusive Predator Club merchandise. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, the beast was beginning to break down. By September 2021, maintenance logs showed concerning patterns. Restraint systems required adjustment after every 50 cycles instead of the designed 200. Polyester straps were being replaced monthly instead of annually. The aluminum locking mechanisms showed wear patterns maintenance chief Robert Torres had never seen. "These locks are deteriorating at an alarming rate," Torres wrote in an October 2021 report. "The combination of G-forces, weather exposure, and cycling stress is causing premature metal fatigue. Recommend immediate engineering review." The review never came. Instead, Torres received a memo about maintaining cost-effective operations and a reminder that his performance review was coming up. By January 2023, the apex predator had completed over 0 cycles, far exceeding its first major maintenance milestone. What investigators would later discover was a maintenance department in crisis, caught between safety obligations and corporate pressure to keep the park's star attraction operational at all costs. Robert Torres had worked in amusement park maintenance for 23 years. He'd started at Cedar Point, trained at Disney, and thought he'd seen everything. But the apex predator's deterioration alarmed him in ways he struggled to articulate in his reports. "Metal has a voice," Torres later testified. "When it's under stress, it screams." And by early 2023, the apex predator was screaming. The problems were cascading. The extreme G-forces were causing faster than expected metal fatigue throughout the structure. Welds showed hairline fractures. Bolts were stretching. Support beams exhibited concerning flexibility. But the most critical failures were in the restraint systems, particularly in the front cars, which experienced the most intense forces. Row 12, Seat 4 had a dark history. In March 2023, a rider reported their harness felt loose mid-ride. In April, another said they heard ripping sounds during the first drop. In May, a maintenance worker noticed unusual wear patterns on the polyester straps. Each incident was logged, but never escalated. The problem was the FlexLock Ultra system's fatal design flaw. The polyester straps connected to aluminum locks through a steel pin. Under normal conditions, this worked fine. But the Apex Predator didn't create normal conditions. The repeated extreme forces caused the aluminum to deform microscopically with each cycle, creating gaps that allowed the steel pins to shift. This shifting caused accelerated wear on the polyester straps, at the connection points, invisible damage accumulating with every ride. On June 3, 2023, Torres submitted his most urgent report yet. Using an industrial endoscope, he'd discovered significant internal degradation in multiple restraint systems. 12 seats showed critical wear. Row 12, Seat 4, was the worst. "This seat must be taken out of service immediately," Torres wrote. "The primary restraint shows 60% material degradation at stress points. Catastrophic failure is not a possibility, it's an inevitability." The response from Webb's office was swift and harsh. Torres was called into a meeting with park management and told his alarmist reports were damaging park operations. He was reminded that Thunder Mountain employed 400 people whose jobs depended on keeping attractions running. "Are you saying the ride is unsafe?" Webb asked directly. "I'm saying specific seats need immediate replacement," Torres replied. "But the ride itself, is it safe?" Torres hesitated. "Within current operational parameters, if properly maintained, then maintain it properly," Webb cut him off. "But keep it running." What happened next would haunt Torres forever. Instead of replacing the damaged restraints, management ordered them refurbished. This meant tightening bolts, adding supplementary straps, and applying industrial adhesive to micro tears. It was like putting a bandage on a severed artery. The inspection system was equally compromised. Thunder Mountain contracted its safety inspections to QuickCheck Associates, a company that specialized in efficiency. Their inspectors spent an average of 4 minutes examining each seat. The industry standard was 15 minutes. They used visual checks instead of stress tests. They relied on maintenance logs instead of independent verification. Dave Paulson, a former QuickCheck inspector, later admitted the company culture prioritized speed over safety. "We were told that finding too many problems would lose us contracts," he testified. The message was clear: keep the rides running. The June 2023 inspection gave Apex Predator a clean bill of health. The inspector spent 3 hours examining a ride that should have required 8 hours. Row 12, Seat 4, received a pass rating despite Torres's documentation of critical wear. But the real smoking gun was discovered in deleted emails recovered during the investigation. On June 28th, Webb wrote to his insurance broker, "Need to maximize operational days before end of fiscal year. Can we defer comprehensive maintenance until September? Revenue is critical right now." The broker responded, "Technically possible, but not recommended. Increases liability exposure significantly." Webb's reply, "Understood. Proceeding with current schedule." Meanwhile, social media was documenting troubling incidents. Videos showed restraints vibrating violently during rides. Riders reported feeling unsecured during inversions. One TikTok video, posted July 3rd, showed visible movement in a restraint lock during the ride. It gained 2 million views before Thunder Mountain had it removed for copyright violation. July 15th, 2023, dawned with oppressive heat. By 9 a.m., temperatures had reached 94 degrees with 80% humidity. The kind of weather that makes metal expand, lubricants thin, and safety margins shrink. Thunder Mountain opened its gates to weekend crowds, eager to escape the heat in air-conditioned gift shops and water rides. Sarah Chen and Jake Morrison arrived at 10 a.m., part of Sarah's 24th birthday celebration. They'd driven 3 hours from Cleveland, playing Sarah's Apex Survivor playlist the whole way, songs that pumped adrenaline, that made you feel invincible. "Birthday girl gets to pick everything today," Jake said, though he was secretly terrified of the apex predator. He'd ridden it once and sworn never again. But this was Sarah's day, and her obsession with the ride was something he'd learned to accept, even find endearing. The morning inspection had been conducted by Paul Brennan, a 19-year-old seasonal employee with 3 weeks of training. The temperature had already hit 89 degrees when he began his checks at 7 a.m. The metal was expanding in the heat, making proper measurements difficult. His supervisor told him to do the best you can and get it done fast. "We've got a big crowd coming." Brennan spent 73 seconds inspecting row 12, Seat 4. He tested the harness, lock it clicked. He pulled on the straps they held. He checked the box on his clipboard and moved on. He never noticed the 3mm gap that had developed in the primary lock mechanism, or the discoloration in the polyester, indicating critical material breakdown. By noon, Apex Predator had already completed 27 cycles. Riders were reporting an unusual amount of vibration. 2 separate guests complained their restraints felt different. A maintenance worker noticed an odd sound during the vertical loop, metal groaning in a way he'd never heard before. Torres wasn't working that day. He'd called in sick later, admitting he couldn't bear to watch what he knew was coming. His replacement, Tommy Washington, was competent but inexperienced. When concerns were raised, Washington's response was to monitor the situation and document any issues. At 1:15 p.m., the first near disaster occurred. Jennifer Bailey, riding in row 11, seat 3, reported her restraint partially released during the first inversion. The secondary safety caught, keeping her secured, but she was hysterical when the ride ended. Park management's response was to take that single seat out of service and offer Bailey free passes to return another day. They didn't close the ride. They didn't inspect adjacent seats. They didn't consider that if one restraint was failing, others might be compromised. The heat was causing unprecedented stress on already weakened components, but the park was making 47.0 per hour from Apex Predator operations. Every minute of downtime was money lost. Sarah and Jake joined the queue at 2:15 p.m. The wait time was posted as 45 minutes, but the heat made it feel longer. Sarah was vibrating with excitement, recording Instagram stories, wearing her Apex Survivor tank top. Jake was trying to hide his nervousness, making jokes about their funeral arrangements. "If we die, I want separate caskets," he said. "I don't want to spend eternity listening to you talk about roller coasters." Sarah laughed and kissed him. "We're not going to die. I've ridden this thing 14 times. It's safer than driving." Statistics would have supported her. The International Association of Amusement Parks reported only 1 in 750 million rides resulted in serious injury. But statistics assume proper maintenance, functioning safety systems, and operators who prioritize human life over profit. At 2:47 p.m., Sarah and Jake boarded the Apex Predator. The ride operator, following standard procedure, assigned them seats based on weight distribution. Sarah, at 125 pounds, was placed in row 12, Seat 4. Jake, heavier at 180 pounds, was put in Seat 3. The restraints lowered. Sarah's clicked into place with an unusual sound, a grinding rather than a clean lock. She mentioned it to the operator, who gave it a pull test. It held. "You're good to go," he said, the last words Sarah would hear while safely on the ground. At 2:17 p.m., the Apex Predator began its climb. The chain lift pulled 16 riders up the 320-foot ascent at a 45-degree angle. Sarah was recording on her phone, narrating for her followers. Birthday ride number 1. This never gets old. The first indication of catastrophic failure occurred at 2:49:43 p.m., just 26 seconds into the ride. As the coaster crested the initial peak, the primary lock on Sarah's restraint system fractured. The 3mm gap Brennan had missed that morning suddenly became a 15mm separation. Sarah felt the harness shift, but attributed it to the normal forces of the drop. The first plunge, 310 feet at 87 degrees, generated 5.8 Gs of force. The weakened polyester straps, already compromised by months of degradation, stretched beyond their breaking point. 3 of the 6 connection points failed simultaneously. Sarah's scream changed from exhilaration to terror as she felt her body lifting despite the restraint. "Something's wrong," she screamed to Jake. But her voice was lost in the roar of the ride and the screams of other passengers. Through the first inversion, the remaining straps held, but barely. The aluminum lock mechanism, deformed by repeated stress, was now failing progressively with each element. By the second loop, Sarah was being held by only 2 polyester straps and her own grip on the grab handles. Jake, trapped in his own functioning restraint, could only watch in horror as Sarah's harness visibly separated from the seat. He reached for her, but the G-forces made movement impossible. "Hold on, just hold on," he screamed. At 2:31 p.m., the apex predator entered its signature element, the death spiral, a 360-degree helix that generated 6.1 Gs of lateral force. The 2 remaining straps, never designed to handle full body weight under such conditions, began tearing audibly. Other riders heard what they later described as ripping fabric and screaming metal. The ride's computer system detected an anomaly at 2:50:45 p.m. Multiple sensors indicated restraint integrity compromise in row 12. The emergency protocol automatically engaged, bringing the coaster to a controlled stop. But the stop position was the worst possible place 200 feet up at the apex of the ride's highest element, with the train inverted at a 45-degree angle. Sarah was now hanging completely out of her seat, held only by one partially torn strap, and her grip on a grab bar never designed for life-or-death situations. Her full body weight, multiplied by the angle and residual G-forces, created over 400 pounds of downward pressure. "Help me! Oh God, it's tearing! It's tearing apart!" Her screams carried across the entire park. Below, hundreds of visitors looked up in horror. Parents grabbed children, turning them away from the sight. Teenagers pulled out phones, live streaming the nightmare. Park security frantically tried to clear the area beneath the ride, knowing what might happen next. In the control room, operator Michael Chen, no relation to Sarah, was frantically cycling through emergency protocols. The computer showed restraint failure, ROW 12 seat 4 in red letters. His training had covered mechanical stops, medical emergencies, and power failures. Nobody had prepared him for this. "Get the fire department here, now," he shouted into his radio. "We have a rider partially ejected at height. Repeat, rider partially ejected." The nearest ladder truck was 11 minutes away. Sarah's last strap was tearing at approximately 1 inch every 10 seconds. She had maybe 90 seconds. Jake was screaming, begging, crying. "Baby, hold on, don't let go, please don't let go." He was fighting against his own restraint, trying desperately to free himself to help her, bloodying his hands on the metal locks. Other riders were in various states of panic. A man in row 8 was praying loudly. A teenager in row 3 had fainted. A woman in row 15 was live streaming to 0 viewers, narrating the horror in a shocked monotone. "She's hanging. Oh my God, she's going to fall. Someone has to do something." Cast. At 2:51:22 p.m., Thunder Mountain's maintenance team attempted a desperate intervention. Using the manual override, they tried to rotate the train to a more stable position. The movement, intended to help, accelerated the tear. The last strap separated another 3 inches. Sarah's grip was failing. The grab bar, slick with sweat and never designed for prolonged holding, was slipping from her fingers. She tried to adjust her grip and felt her left hand lose contact entirely. She was now hanging by one hand, 200 feet above concrete. "I can't hold on," she screamed. "Jake, I can't." At 2:51:47 p.m., 30 seconds after the emergency stop, Sarah Chen's final restraint strap tore completely through. For a fraction of a second, she hung in space, suspended only by her right hand's grip on a metal bar. Jake's anguished "no" cut through everything. Then she fell. The fall lasted 2.3 seconds. Sarah Chen struck the concrete loading platform at 67 miles per hour. Death was instantaneous. The aftermath was captured by dozens of cameras, streamed to millions, and seared into the memories of everyone present. Jake Morrison remained trapped in the suspended coaster for another 37 minutes while emergency crews worked to safely evacuate the riders. He was sedated at the scene, unable to stop screaming Sarah's name. The other riders were evacuated one by one using aerial platforms. 3 required immediate hospitalization for shock. 14 would later file lawsuits for psychological trauma. The teenager who had live-streamed the disaster deleted her accounts and entered therapy. Thunder Mountain Amusement Park never reopened. Within 4 hours of Sarah's death, state inspectors had arrived. What they found led to immediate criminal investigations. The maintenance logs had been falsified. Safety reports had been suppressed. A young woman had died for profit margins. Marcus Webb was arrested 6 days later, charged with criminally negligent homicide. He was convicted and sentenced to 15 years in prison. Thunder Mountain's insurance company paid out $47 million in settlements. The park was demolished in 2024. The apex predator was dismantled piece by piece, each section examined by investigators, building cases that would reshape the amusement park industry. New federal regulations, known as Sarah's Law, now require redundant safety systems, independent inspections, and criminal penalties for deferred maintenance on amusement rides. Robert Torres, the maintenance supervisor who had tried to prevent the disaster, testified at every trial. "I knew someone would die," he said, breaking down on the stand. "I documented it, reported it, begged them to listen." Sarah Chen died because profits mattered more than people. Jake Morrison never fully recovered. He moved back to his parents' home, unable to work, unable to process the trauma of watching the woman he loved die while he sat helpless inches away. He keeps one photo, Sarah, on her 23rd birthday, standing in front of the apex predator, smiling, alive, unaware that the machine behind her would kill her exactly 1 year later. The site where Thunder Mountain once stood is now a memorial park. A simple plaque reads, "In memory of Sarah Chen, July 15, 1999, July 15, 2023. Her death was preventable. Her memory demands change." The amusement park industry would like you to believe Sarah's death was a freak accident, an unforeseeable tragedy. It wasn't. It was murder by negligence, greed by another name, a young woman sacrificed on the altar of quarterly earnings. The next time you strap into a roller coaster, remember Sarah Chen. Remember that your safety depends not on statistics or engineering or regulations, but on whether the people running that ride value your life more than their profits. And sometimes, terrifyingly, they don't.